The bridge of the Kalin flagship vibrated violently, the deck plates burning hot beneath Fleetmaster Vale's boots. Across the panoramic viewport, his invincible armada was boxed in by searing walls of hard light energy. The comms console flared, and the image of Commander Elena Vance of the Terran Vanguard filled the screen. She did not blink, her steady gaze locking onto him through the vast distance of space. "We are not planning to resist your armada, Vale." Vale, her voice cut through the blaring alarms, calm and absolute. "We are planning to vaporize it." 40 hours earlier, the Aegis system was supposed to be a standard conquest. Vale had stood at this very console, proudly observing the polished titanium hulls of his fleet, dismissing the ancient galactic warning blinking on his tactical display. The archives spoke of a death world species awakened, a volatile sector best left untouched. But the Kalin Empire thrived on momentum and unmatched velocity. Their armada was an arrow of pure light and plasma engines, built for speed and ultimate triumph. Long-range scanners had painted the Terran Vanguard as a fractured collection of slow, low-yield cruisers. It was a flawless, deliberate illusion. Controlling intelligence and purposefully appearing weak had always been humanity's most potent defensive tactic. Vale gave the order to drop out of hyperspace, expecting a swift volley of kinetic strikes to force the primitives to their knees. Instead, they flew straight into the jaws of a trap meticulously constructed across millions of miles of open space. The moment the Kalin Vanguard breached the orbit of the inner planets, the grand illusion shattered. The vacuum around them ignited. What Vale's sensors had registered as harmless asteroid fields and dormant moons suddenly flared with the furious heat of massive fusion drives. Commander Vance had waited with predatory patience, letting the alien fleet sink incredibly deep into the gravity well of the central star. Then, she snapped the trap shut. The deck lurched, throwing Vale against his command terminal as the first human volley streaked past the Kalin shields. The munitions did not strike the ships, they detonated in the void, expanding into a blinding, interconnected cage of energy containment grids. The hum of the flagship's engines pitched into a frantic mechanical scream. Adrenaline spiked through Vale's veins as the tactical map updated in real time, charting a terrifying blur of motion as Terran dreadnoughts uncloaked in flawless, unyielding formation. They were entirely massive, drawing power directly from the solar flares, effectively turning their home star into a system-sterilizing weapon. Preparing overwhelmingly for the worst-case scenario was the core of the Terran doctrine, and Vance had turned the entire Aegis system into a loaded gun aimed directly at his armada. The heat in the command center was visceral now, the physical proximity of the charging Terran superweapons generating an electric tension that made the air snap and spark against Vale's skin. They were completely surrounded. Every thruster burn, every panicked defensive maneuver initiated by the Kalin pilots was instantly countered by the sheer, overwhelming speed of the human response. The Kalin flagship groaned as the magnetic pull of the Terran containment grid locked them in place. Vale watched the tactical feed turn a blinding crimson. Every escape vector evaporated in a rapid blur of motion. Panicked Kalin gunners opened fire, a desperate sequence of high-yield plasma bursts. The bolts struck the hard light cage and harmlessly absorbed into the Terran shielding, feeding their power grid rather than breaching it. Vale gripped the command console, grinding his teeth against the high-frequency vibration rattling his bones. The targeting lasers of 100 Terran dreadnoughts painted his hull, generating an intense heat that radiated through the viewport. A single command from Vance would reduce the entire Kalin armada to scattered atoms. Vale braced himself. He waited for the searing flash of his own end. He waited for the absolute annihilation his own empire would have delivered without a second thought. It never came. The brilliant, blinding light of the Terran superweapons held steady charged, locked, and completely static. Commander Vance remained on the comm screen, her expression unyielding, her hand resting lightly on the console. She was demonstrating a fundamental law of the universe that the Kalin had entirely overlooked. True strength is not simply wielding destructive power, but possessing the wisdom and discipline to withhold it. "Your engines are cascading toward failure," Vance stated, her voice projecting clearly over the blaring bridge alarms. "Power down your core and lower your shields, Vale. This does not have to be the end of your fleet." The heat inside the Kalin bridge was suffocating, fueled by the adrenaline pounding in Vale's ears. He looked at his crew, the elite warriors of a conquering race, now paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of their own miscalculation. The choice was clear. He exhaled a sharp breath, reached forward, and slammed his hand onto the master override. The Kalan weapons powered down. The hum of their mighty plasma engines died out, replaced by the low, steady thrum of the Terran tractor beams pulling them in. He transmitted the unconditional surrender codes. Hours later, the adrenaline had faded into a profound, electric realization. Vale stood unchained in the brightly lit, immaculate conference hall of the Terran flagship. He expected immediate execution. Instead, Vance stepped forward, offering him a seat at a polished blast table, placing a digital datapad of peace terms before him. He stared at the human commander, feeling the terrifying relief of seeing his surviving crew treated with dignity and kept safe. This was peace secured through system-sterilizing firepower and absolute restraint. The Kalan had spent millennia conquering through sheer velocity and force, believing mercy was a fatal flaw, but sitting across from Vance, observing the calculated calm of a species that held the power of a star in their hands and chose to offer a treaty instead. A cold shock ran down his spine. It was a profound paradigm shift. Vale finally understood the ancient galactic warning, realizing with absolute certainty that when a conqueror learns that mercy is far more terrifying than total annihilation, the universe changes forever.